Welcome back. We're going to do predictions for tonight's championship game. Are you guys ready? UH Open. Here's Aaron Winsett. Exactly. So, I'm here with Aaron Winsett, our regional coordinator from Minnesota. My name is Liesl von Steinbergs, and we're going to talk predicts for tonight's game. We are seeing a 1 versus a 2, which we mentioned in our post-game recap.
I don't think it's ever happened.
If it has, it's not been in recent times. We've had a 2 versus a 7. We've had kind of low seeds make it through to the championship
6
round.
and 4s.
But I think that speaks to the level of play overall in our league. I think that Open is really even. There isn't a lot of lopsided, especially when we get into playoffs. For instance, Elite 8. Those games were determined by 2 points apiece. For instance, in the Elite 8, those games were determined by 2 points apiece for the most part. The Big Smash Rip City game was by 4, but really that went down to the wire as well. That just ended up with free throws at the end. But that says a lot about the caliber of play that we have. Now, a 1 versus a 2, that 1 seed was earned in the last week of regular season. The Bulls were on top the whole way. They were undefeated. All of a sudden, they dropped 2 games, but they dropped 2 in a row, 2 weeks in a row. Some of it having to do a little bit with the national tournament, maybe a little,
layover,
hangover, maybe. But they, went from, luckily not worse, first to worst, but that was a harsh blow to go into playoffs with that kind of mentality. So they've struggled a little bit. But anyway, so the Wolves earned that #1. Head-to-head, they beat the Bulls. Head-to-head, they beat Rip City. So that's the other thing. Rip City's coming in thinking that too. The last time that these guys met, Wolves won. So you've got that going for you. They had a hard-fought win on Monday. They made a big transition by beating a super athletic team in Get Shook. They had to fight for everything they got, especially down to the stretch in that game. So I think that they've shown that they have a lot of tenacity. They've got veteran leadership. I mean, look at Neil Anderson. Look at Hans. These guys are competitors. And it doesn't matter their age. Brian Rieger. Oh my gosh. Brian Rieger in the Final Four taking charges. Not one. Several.
Yeah.
He's standing there.
He hit a big shot, too, at the end of the game. He hit, a little 7-footer.
Do not fall asleep on these guys. I'm just telling you. And they let... Get Shook made some crucial errors in letting Neil get free for a couple buckets in both the regulation and overtime. So if I'm going to say anything to Rip City, I'm going to say you have to be on your defensive grind. You really have to mark your guy. You really cannot, whoever you've got, make sure that you know. And if you're going to play a zone, it's going to have to be a really disciplined zone because the Wolves are a great passing team. Okay, so... the Wolves are a great passing team, and if you're playing a zone, they can pick that apart with quick passing. They're a smart team. Brian Munsell. I mean, you've got guys on this. They've got really high basketball IQ. Rip City does as well, but it's just one of those things where you just cannot have a weak link. If you have a weak link, it will be exposed.
And the Wolves can shoot lights out. They're, in
my
opinion, by far the best shooting team in the league.
Consistently, I would agree, but do not let Peter Olafeso get hot. The Bulls learned this the hard way. So, regular season last week, somebody on the Bulls team made some comment about, oh, we could beat you with 4 guys. Peter took it very personally. He literally took that team, put it on his back, and was lights out from outside. I want to say he was 80% or 90% from three-pointers that night. He was maybe 75-80% from the field overall. 100% from the free throw line. Please, guys, this is like Reggie and Spike Lee. Don't do it. Don't poke the bear. Just leave him alone if you want to have a good night. But now, consistency-wise, I totally agree. Neil Anderson, Brian Munsell, typically very, very good shooters, especially from the outside. Do not let them get going. Now, let's talk about the paint game, though, inside. Now, you've got Joe Suick, who was not here for the Final Four, Antoine Lynch. Both of them will be big in the paint for the Wolves. Brian Rieger, yep, held it down. CJ is not so much of a typical post, but he can get in there and bang.
He's more of a finesse guy,
Exactly.
just kind of from what I've seen. But
he goes inside out, so he can play either. He's like a 1 through 5 type of guy. He's got a good handle, but he also can play inside and bang if he has to. I think he prefers not to. Tonight, I bet you're going to see.
Inside,
yep. Because Femi's going to be occupied with other people. And then that will leave Steve to try to pick up the power forward. If CJ's at that 4 spot, that'll be a good mismatch. CJ versus Steve, I take CJ. And that's nothing against Steve. I'm just saying that CJ has a lot of really advanced post moves, and Steve's more of a grunt defender. He's much more of a basic type of guy. He may get in foul trouble with having to match up that way all night long. Also, for the Twins, defensively, they can't have any letdown. Now, people say, and then the other thing is Kurt. People say, oh, Peter doesn't play defense. Curtis doesn't play defense. I've seen both of those guys lock up when things are on the line. So do not, again, don't sleep on the Wolves in terms of their shooting ability. Do not sleep on the Rip City's ability to be a cohesive defensive unit and really, really lock up if and when it's time and they're called upon to do that. So I think it's going to be a really good game. I'll be curious to see, obviously, since the Wolves pulled it out the last time, how the flow of the game goes. I think one of the things that could potentially really hurt Rip City is if they crumble and argue. I think that the Wolves will capitalize, and they will capitalize quickly. They're a smart team, like I said, and they're really savvy to the fact that, if those guys start to lose their heads, that's their opportunity. That will definitely be time for them to go for the jugular. What do you think the Wolves, where are the Wolves' weaknesses?
I think overall that they're kind of what we saw tonight. They're only, I would say, one of their only weaknesses, or the big one, is the athleticism factor. Having Joe back obviously helps that.
Yep. Well, Antoine, for his size and age, he's a pretty athletic dude too.
Very athletic, yes.
He's especially agile at certain times.
Yeah.
I think he's surprisingly so for some people.
But yeah, I think that's where just kind of as you said, the flow of the game will be interesting. Does the Wolves, because they have the size advantage, are they pushing it inside early on and going after and trying to get some of these guys in foul trouble? Will we see their 2-3 zone? They played a 2-3 zone at the end and get shook, and they did well in it.
I think a 2-3 though for them is not going to be the way to go, because a 2-3 against a good shooting team, you're going to get shot out of it. Their ball movement, the Wolves will pick up on that. They will move the ball, and they will hurt you from the outside. If anything, they want to use a zone, I'd go to a 3-2. So you have 3 guys on the perimeter and 2 post players inside. That gives you a better coverage around the outside, but that takes really disciplined rotation. And, not knocking Rip City at all, I'm just not sure if everyone on their team has the basketball IQ to carry that and to rotate properly in a 3-2.
I was talking about the Wolves playing zone.
Oh!
So, because they played a 2-3 versus get shook at the end of it tonight, and they did pretty well. So.
Well, that could be, but again...
And in my opinion, they kind of did that because they had...
they needed to pack it in.
Yep. They had the Ellis and Johnson they were eating them alive.
Yep. And those guys are quick, and that's true. Peter and Kenny can really hurt you in the same capacity. They can really, slice and dice, and if you don't have guys that are quick enough to guard them one-on-one, the thing about that is Peter and Kenny are better at creating their own shot in those situations. So if you close down that middle gap, they can create from the outside as well. So again, I'd say the same thing. You might be better with a 3-2. Wolves may have more luck with it, but even that leaves a lot of gap in the middle. And Rip City is good at exploiting whatever you give them. They're going to take advantage. Kurt tonight, literally man on fire again. If he remains in that mode, he's going to be really hard to stop. Again, 3-headed monster. Who do you pick?
Yeah, I think for Rip City to win, one of them's got to have kind of a Kurt-esque game on Thursday night. For the Wolves, I think Neil Anderson's going to have a big game. I think they're going to have to out-rebound Rip City. I think they're going to have to not use the size advantage that they have. And
Which conceivably they could do.
Uh-huh.
With Joe Suick, with Antoine Lynch, and Brian Rieger inside.
CJ
And CJ, they, besides which, even Munsell and Albrecht, for their size, they are rebounding guards. And Neil, I mean, they're actually, Wolves are probably one of the most disciplined rebounding teams in the league, in my opinion. They're boxing out every possession.
In your opinion, the Wolves will win if?
The Wolves will win if they clean boards. If they're disciplined and they're rebounding, and Rip City's off at all. You can't rebound made shots. So if Rip City's really hot, that's going to be a tough one for them, because I think that Rip City will get shots off. But if the Wolves play disciplined defense and really rebound well, and Rip City, and also I think for the Wolves, if they do not get in foul trouble, do not foul those guys, the Twins especially, Kurt, because those guys will be clutch free throw shooters. So that will be key for the Wolves. Clean boards. And then offensively, if they stick to their usual routine, they should do well as well. Disciplined passing, a lot of ball movement. Wait till you find that opening where Rip City lets their guard down, because if you work a lot, and this is true of every team, they fall asleep. They start to let their guard down, their defense breaks down, and you get your opportunities. It may be a very low-scoring game, though. But this is a type of game that could go either way. It could be a grind, it could be a defensive grind, or it could be a complete shootout. This is a game that could go, 140s, 120s, potentially, which is fun to see in a playoff game, but probably means there's no defense being played.
I don't think it's going to be that I think it's going to be
high?
70s, 80s, because it's a
well,
championship.
but here, think about this. Not this past season, but the season before, the Wolves went for almost 150. And Kurt's team, the Monstars, went for 150. So they have the scoring potential within their squads to do that.
Yep. And that could be the reason why they're number 1, number 2 seeds. Rip City wins if?
Rip City wins if they use their athleticism, if they stay smart in terms of the way that their matchups are. I think do not force Steve to guard CJ all game. I think that's going to be a big mismatch. Paul Okello would be another good one, in terms of he'd be a better match guarding CJ. Don't know, if he'll get the minutes needed to really do what he needs to do, because that's the other thing too. There are a few X factors, and if Rip City doesn't keep track of all of them and let somebody go, they could be in trouble. Joe Suick could step out and have a 20, 30 point game.
And then the Wolves, I think they might not be on the same level, but they're right there if they're not on the same level.
Athletically,
they have Hans. No, just scoring wise.
Oh, okay.
Hans, Neil.
Oh,
Joe.
They have 5+ guys that are 20-point producers on a given night.
That can light it up too.
Well, and yeah, if you just do the math, if you just go by their averages, and we're talking about Joe as an average, both with the Wolves and with Big Smash. I mean, he can score in this league. They have legit 5 to 6 guys who can break out and go for 25 points, any of them. So again, like we talked about with, it's going to be tough to guard the top 3 for Rip City. Same goes for the Wolves. Who are you going to choose?
Yep.
And if you have a weak link defensively, that's going to be huge, because you let one guy get loose and get going. That's the other thing. It's a championship game, guys. If anybody gets hot, they're going to be feeling it, and it's going to be curtains. Yep. And we've also seen in this league, I mean, Monstars, they had a perfect, almost like, a dynasty type team built. They went to the championship game and crumbled. No, they lost to Rip City.
Okay, yeah, that's who it was.
Yeah, and you should have seen the looks on their faces. It was like shock and awe, because they're like, this isn't even us. We don't even know what's happening. And that's the other thing, too. There's, lots of things could happen where, well, one or the other just has a moment. And that's all it takes. In a championship game, this caliber of play, you do not have room to even have one moment of letdown. So I think that'll be it for Rip City. They have to be together. No fighting. They have to make sure that they don't have any letdowns, no weak links. If they have that, they have great team chemistry. But, sometimes those brotherly loves don't come out very lovingly.
So you're going with Rip City by 3.
Yeah, that was my off the top of my head, but I'm gonna stick by that. I just feel like that they've overcome a lot. I think we talked in the previous video regarding Peter Olafeso. His leadership has come a long way. It just feels like they're in a good place right now. They're very confident, they're very strong, but they're also very settled. And you know, that being said, they kind of almost gave it up at the end of that Final Four game, but they managed. They hung on. The Wolves, it really could go either way, though. I mean, it really could. Neil he's just clutch. He's absolutely like Reggie Miller. He's like Ray Allen was for the Bucks. I mean, he is that guy. Mm-hmm. He's that guy. I don't care if he's outside in the parking lot. Do not count him out. I'm just saying, like, you know, and the most humble guy you'll ever meet. He's never going to toot his own horn. He's never going to say, oh, you know, yes, I'm so awesome. He always gives credit to his teammates. But you know what? Other guys on their team, too, have that capacity. Munsell, you know, he likes to drive and hit from the baseline. Don't let him just have that shot. So I just have a feeling it's going to be close. It's probably going to come down to the last 2 to 3 possessions.
I agree.
There's no way to call that. There just isn't. Nope. I mean, I had to make a prediction, but it's just, come on. It's going to be a good game. That's the bottom line. Make sure that you're there.
We'll see you guys tonight.
All right.